All right. Are we live on air? Does everybody see us? How's everybody doing tonight? I can't tell if anybody's on yet. First time doing something like this.
Hey.
So we're live?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Tonight, I wanted to give you guys the perspective of myself and Michael. We're both pretty young business owners, and right now everybody is talking about the March for Our Lives and kind of framing that as a millennial movement, and I don't think it is. What do you think, Mike? Michael, we're both pretty young business owners, and
Hear a pretty good echo. Might have to get a headset on in a second.
your end or mine?
I think it might be both.
I got earphones. Your end or mine? I got earphones. Goats and shotguns. This is going to be about millennials and guns, and then a little bit later we might discuss some things like Glock 19X, Sig P365, the Smith & Wesson Easy 380 Shield. I'm still getting the feedback even through the headphones.
I'm good now.
You don't hear anything?
No, I hear you. I have no feedback now. So.
Yeah, I'm hearing myself on a lag, which is kind of weird. But all right, we'll get started.
Sorry, this is the first time, so we're working out some bugs.
I have no idea what's causing this. All right. So anyway, you see all this stuff on the news about millennials and the March for Our Lives, and maybe you guys have seen some of the interviews. I think this protest is being massively distorted about who's actually controlling it. You're looking at a bunch of baby boomers that are actually controlling the protest. The kids from the high school from Parkland are really being just used by these influential people with a lot of money, like Soros is one to be rumored, but I think Bloomberg's one you can probably definitely tie back with. That's no conspiracy theory there. So you've got a bunch of kids that are essentially, 18 years old, 16 years old, that are told they can get a bunch of attention and they'll essentially be set up for the rest of their lives as political commentators, political
commentators. I guarantee you'll see some run for office.
You'll see them run for office. You'll see them on CNN. You'll see them all over the news. They're going to be making $250 a year minimum for the actions they're taking right now. So there's really no downside to what they're doing if they don't care about the Second Amendment, obviously. They're not presenting any real solutions, though. You saw there's a kid who's been on Steven Crowder's show a few times who's the only pro-Second Amendment guy that's getting any press, and I think he's been on Fox a few times is what he said, but I've only seen him on Crowder's show. I don't really watch the regular news that much, but nobody else is really getting any good press time. So it's very obvious these Parkland kids that are getting shown, the bald-headed girl and David Hogg, they're paid. They've got, millions of dollars that are financing their actions, and all the school walkouts. It's a bunch of BS. Half the kids that are at those school walkouts, they're being told to go by their teachers, or they're kids who don't care about anything politically, and they just want to get out of class for 15 minutes. Do you agree? I
mean, I remember high school. I would have done anything to miss class. I'm not going to lie.
I would have done anything as long as it didn't relate to the Second Amendment. For any other issue, I would have wanted to get out.
I was pretty stout Second Amendment guy. And I probably wouldn't walk out for this to miss class, but I mean, anything else, I wouldn't have cared. I mean, it's just a reason to not be in class.
So the biggest thing, another thing is people are talking about millennials in a very negative light right now. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. And the reason I say that is they're going to be the easiest to try to change their mind. Do you agree? I mean, I think they're the most open-minded. When I've taken millennials out the range who are not necessarily pro-gun, not necessarily anti-gun, I've got a better chance of converting them than I do somebody who's middle-aged. That's what I've
agree.
Once somebody's around the age of 30, you have to have a very open-minded individual to change their mind one way or the other. Whether or not they're in the middle and they just don't care, or they're anti-gun, pro-gun.
Yeah, I think you definitely, I mean, at a young age, it's kind of embarrassing. I do remember being afraid of guns when I was, 10 years old or younger when I first shot guns, because I just assumed there was a lot of recoil. That was the only reason that really scared me. Once I shot them, realized there wasn't anything to be scared of with the recoil. Man, it was on like Donkey Kong after that, and it was guns this, guns that. Ever since my dad just basically was like, man up, for lack of a better word, better way to put it. But man up, shoot it. He forced me to face my fears, go out there and shoot it. Showed me there was nothing to be scared of, and ever since then, it's been.
See,
he probably has more guns than me, only because he's retired now. So
go ahead, start.
For a while, we were in a good competition, but now he's blowing me out of the water. So
see, I was probably got into guns when I was around 3 to 4 years old. We had a family friend who was really big into cowboy action shooting, and he ended up buying me a bunch of cap guns, holsters, cowboy boots, things like that. So my mom, of course, has a lot of pictures of me as a little 3-year-old running around dressed like the Lone Ranger, little cowboy. And
was he the one that got you into the novels too?
No.
Okay.
That happened myself probably around 14, 15 years old. Might have
For
been.
anybody that doesn't know, Harrison loves cowboy novels, Western novels.
Hey, everybody loves Louis Lamar, even if Michael doesn't know who he is.
Still don't know what that is.
Yeah, you got to look that up. But my dad was not really a gun guy. He grew up around guns. His dad was a big bird hunter, had a bunch of bird dogs, loved Browning A5 pattern shotguns, so collected Sweet 16s, had a bunch of them, and he was a guy, he traded cars a lot and traded guns a lot, unfortunately. I wish he'd have kept more of those guns. My dad now has one of his Sweet 16s, and my uncle has the other. Those were the two he kept over the years, but he had a lot of Browning A5s through the years, and most of them he sold. So unfortunately, I don't have that, but I really had to really work on my dad to get me into the sport. Like I had friends who, my dad doesn't really hunt, doesn't do anything like that. So he's actually started doing more of that as he's gotten older. But when I was a kid, none of that. So I had to save up my own money, work. I bought my first 22. The first gun I ever got that was a real gun that wasn't a family gun that was handed down was a Remington 870 Express 12 gauge that I told my parents, I said, I either want a PS3, that was the big game console coming out at the time, or a Remington 870. And my mom hated video games. Wasn't that big of a fan of guns either, but they figured me messing around in the woods with a shotgun was better than me messing around with a PS3. What was your first gun?
The first gun that was like given to me was oh my God, it kicked like a board too. It was a break action 20 gauge shotgun, and it was a wood stock, and there was no padding. It was straight plastic on the butt stock, and it kicked like a mule. First gun I ever got that was like given to me like Merry Christmas was a Benelli Nova Pump.
Yeah. I've got one of those. I've got one of the tactical versions, but nice little gun. Do you still have it?
Oh yeah, mine's. I don't get rid of guns that were given to me by my dad.
I got you.
In fact, my first Glock, I kind of retired it and bought a Gen 4. That's a Gen 3. My dad got it for me for my 18th birthday. And ever since then, it's been retired. It just sits, doesn't get shot anymore. So
Yeah, I'm looking here to see if there's any questions. Oh,
yeah, that's what I've been looking. If anybody's wondering why I'm like not paying attention and looking behind me, I haven't put up behind me, trying to keep up with the comments somewhat.
See, Big Johnson Guns and Gear said he started shooting rifles at 22 rifles at 6 and 45 ACP at 10. I think the first time I shot my Pawpaw's 16 gauge, by that time he had died and we had inherited it. I was probably 11 or 12 when I shot that. But I really didn't shoot a real gun until probably around 10 years old. My dad was a big BB gun guy, believe it or not. I mean, he always had like a BB gun to shoot squirrels and stuff with, shoot beer cans. The first time I shot a BB gun, I was probably 3 years old. He put it on the deck railing, pumped it up for me, and that's how I started. BB guns were regular around the house. Small little lightweight, bows were regular, but everything else was
Hey, I see
kind of foreign.
Alaskan Ballistics in the comments says they're fighting House Bill 75. I'll be honest, I'm not real up to date on Alaskan politics, but kind of curious if you can elaborate on that for us and kind of tell us what's going on with that in Alaska, because I don't know what that's about.
Post a little more about what HB 75 is, Alaska Ballistics.
Because I know Harrison's big on contacting your representatives, and if there's anything we can do to help out any state, I don't care where it is, with positive or opposing anti-gun legislation.
I will say this, I'm not going to be one of those guys. I don't have enough time in the day to go around and contact. I know there's guys out there that are retired or have a lot of time. They'll contact representatives in any state, any small district, and act like they're I don't know if it's fraud or not, but they'll act like they're living that state, or I will definitely write an email to a governor and tell them about tourism now.
I'll be honest, though. The only frauds we have are the ones that are violating constitutional rights. So there's that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Arsenal's 616 says, first gun he ever shot was a Mac when he was about 14 years old. First gun he ever owned was an AR-15. See, I worked all summer to buy, when I was 15 years old, I got my driver's permit, and then I drove myself with my dad, obviously in the passenger seat, to the gun store to buy my Glock 19 RTF 2 with fish skills serrations in the slide. I worked all summer to buy that gun, and I had just enough money to buy that, and I think I had enough money left over to get a set of good sights on it and buy like 200 rounds of ammo. And then the next year, I bought a AR-15 that I put together at Palmetto State Armory. Like we're all
with Dan. What? Alaska chimed in on House Bill 75 in Alaska. Says it will give judges and police the ability to take guns from people on suspicion alone without charges being filed or a standard of evidence. And I'm sure a lot of you don't know me, but my primary employment is law enforcement. And I adamantly oppose any kind of, lack of due process. If they're not going to give you due process, I'm out. Plain and simple.
And what's funny, most law enforcement officers that I know and that I'm friends with have the same exact stance. A lot of them deal with a lot of domestic violence situations, and they say they're not really happy with the way the domestic violence stuff is set up, because a lot of it's very in favor of the no guy wants to see his girl go to jail. And a lot of times that screws the guys over in the end. Even when they don't start a fight, sometimes they end up getting blamed because they don't want to see their girl go to jail. And that's understandable, but that's probably getting more into relationship advice, which I have no room to give.
We're talking about CZs apparently, and
he's
in the comments. I'm out because I'm a Glock fan.
I
don't have anything to add to that conversation.
We know what a big Glock fanboy Big Johnson is. That guy loves Glocks. But yeah, founding due process. I mean, I'm kind of probably an extremist on this, but if somebody's allowed to be out in society, like I don't think there should be. I don't see the point in background checks, because I really think felons, everybody should be qualified to buy a gun. If we can't trust them with a gun, Why did we let him out of prison? Now, granted, that probably wouldn't work with the way the justice system is set up, but I'm just saying ultimately I think that would probably be a good goal to have.
Yeah, I think this is Music Lover. I think that's what Music LVR. He said the founding fathers were very clear about due process. The founding fathers were very clear about a lot of things, including the Second, First, Third, Fourth, Fifth Amendments. They're very clear about all of those. I don't understand why they're so hard to comprehend for most people.
Well, all right, let's talk about the First or the Second Amendment as a whole. Most people say, I think a lot of people think Second Amendment supporters, we're sitting there with our AR-15s going, I'm ready to fight the government tomorrow. That's not.
We are.
I don't have my.
What's going on
tonight?
Who's ready to fight? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
But that's not really what we're here for. For me, I don't think the likelihood of me having to fight, even if they unless they go out for full-on confiscation tomorrow, I don't think we'll be fighting the government in my generation, or at least when I'm physically able to fight. But 50 years from now, if I'm 70 years old, the situation could get that far. So when I'm fighting for our Second Amendment rights, I'm not fighting for myself, but I'm fighting for the children I one day hope to have, for my cousins' children, for other younger generations. I want them to continue to be free. Sorry,
apparently Music Lover is a she. My apologies.
Yes.
Strong apologies on that one. I did not know.
I forgot you're not in a lot of Nolan's chat, so
been in a couple, but
yeah, like Alaskan Ballistic said, most law enforcement officers won't enforce it. What do you think about that, Michael?
Yeah, I've been pretty clear about that. I don't, won't, will not, never will enforce
but that's
constitutional law,
because I think everybody knows it'd be freaking crazy to come out and try to confiscate outright. So what they're going to do is they're going to try to get you through the non-due process loophole. Find somebody, this person is a threat to society.
That's the only way they can do it.
Yeah.
If you really give someone due process, you'd have a hard time proving a lot of claims that people make. Obviously, I see lies and deceit and fake claims every single day. But, you got to have some hard proof to really start stripping people of constitutional rights. And I think that's where they have a hard time, is proving beyond a reasonable doubt why this person shouldn't or cannot own a firearm.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm more worried about is those small incremental changes than I am. Like if Congress passed a confiscation bill, I think we would see major pushback. I think you'd see people marching on Washington. And if that wasn't the case, we'd start to see the United States splitting. Which could be a worse situation. I mean, that could lead to civil war. Don't know if that'd be the case. I think left and right to a degree, a lot of them are about ready to say, let's split, but there's a lot of in between there that's unsaid. Yeah, Frank Hellman said, we need to think about how many jobs would be lost over these bills. And that's the thing. How many people a year are killed by rifles? Is it 300 in the U.S.?
I don't know the exact numbers. I will say that
that's rifles in general, not just ARs. It's rifles. It might even include shotguns. It might be all long guns.
Now, I will say that I did post, and I caught some flack for it because I've been pretty critical of Trump when he went full retard. Sorry, but I have some friends that are very hardcore Trump lovers, and they got a little upset. Even my mother was pretty upset because she's a hardcore Trump lover. But I'm like, no, you don't. A, you don't violate people's due process. B, Second Amendment.
Well, the whole thing, he said the terrorist watch list back in the debates in 2016. He was saying he believed that, if you're on the terrorist watch list, you shouldn't be able to get a gun. And, that's fine for most people when they say, when they look at somebody like the person with the Orlando nightclub shooting who, it's different. I think most people react differently if somebody was on that list like you or I.
And two things on that real quick to touch on Frank talking about how much money would be lost. I think you and I had the conversation, and I even posted on our Instagram story about how many billions of dollars. I actually looked up what the U.S. government says the federal spending is on, firearms and arms in the United States. And it was several $billion. And I was like, what's going to happen when, I want to say, and I could be way off, but I want to say it was 32 billion, but that could be way off. Could be like 3 or 2. I don't know. Either way, I was like, how is the president, the Congress, and the Senate going to explain to families that all this money just boom, gone?
How many people, this is horrible to say, but how many people are going to start having divorces, committing suicide, foreclosures, all that is, it's horrible to come at it from that perspective, but you have to wonder if that's not everything.
I agree. And just think of the banks that hold the loans for a lot of these companies. Look at Remington. Look at all these companies filing Chapter 11. All these people hold these debts for these companies. And I know that's restructuring, but what I'm saying is if it disappeared. Now,
you are talking about things would have to be retooled, and people would stop making AR-15s essentially, and maybe they'd start doing New York style. But what we're looking at is we both know how these firearms work. We understand the laws. You're looking at what's going to happen when another mass shooting happens and they just use a different classification of firearm. Look at the Virginia Tech shooting. The guy did that with a couple of handguns. And the whole reporting on this mass shooting thing, a lot of times what they consider a mass shooting is actually gang violence, or it's a family it's a family situation where you have a lot of family members, some of this extended Hatfields and McCoys type situations. I agree, firearms 101. I mean, I think First Amendment, same applies. Any of the original 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights should apply that way. Oh, who's asking about the Lagavulin?
I Big Johnson, but I couldn't spell it right off the top.
If you like smoky, peaty, if you like charcoal in your scotch, which I love, Big J, you got to try it. It's absolutely awesome.
The other thing was, I think you brought up the Florida shooting. I believe his name is Omar Mateen. Hate that I know his name. But he was actually scouting Disney World. That came out today, I believe. They released the fact that he was one of the places, instead of the nightclub shooting, he was actually scouting Disney World. They said they think he got spooked because of the law enforcement presence at Disney World.
Yeah. Shooting with Uncle Dan, will you expound on your last comment? The Crazy Scotsman. It's 16. I love the 16. What's up, Dave? Thanks, Dave. The Arsonist at 16. He's got good taste in scotch. I better watch out. We're going to turn this into a scotch chat. I can invite my buddy Nathan on. Yes, music lover. Every mass shooting, I think, I'm not going to say it could be prevented, but it could definitely be prevented from turning into a mass shooting. What we need is concealed carry allowed in schools. They don't need further certification of teachers or anything like that. If a teacher wants to carry, they should be allowed. They shouldn't get a bonus at work. They should just be allowed to carry their gun if they want to. That's simple. If they're a licensed CCW holder, and I have my views on, obviously less regulation than that, but that's the world we live in today. So we'll move in the right direction with that. But let's say all teachers are allowed to carry if they want to. Most won't, but a few will. And that right there is a huge threat against people, committing these crimes. And the Crazy Scotsman, we need to have an email chat about some good scotch, because I definitely love peaty scotches and would love some suggestions. But
need somebody to CC me on that email, please. It's Michael at M Savage at lynxdefense.com.
I'll check it out. Shooting with Uncle Dave. Yeah, I'm not a big Johnny Walker guy.
It's
not into the
blend. Frank got me on that one.
What if it's the French polish? I'm not that guilty of that. I kind of have a cutoff, but depends on how
if they had liquid charcoal Harrison would drink it.
Oh,
so just keep that in mind.
Now, if it's sweet, probably not.
I don't see charcoal being very sweet, but here nor there.
Yeah,
anyway.
C.W. Hunter said we have schools in Washington State that proactively had their school city council approve certain admins and teachers carry in their school, and it has been a success. Yes, and we can say that to a degree, but at the same time, these shootings are such a statistic anomaly. We can't even determine just because a school does have people carrying in school that it necessarily has a positive impact, because these are so, and I believe it does, but these are so rare. And another thing to take into account is us as concealed carry permit holders. I take a huge liability having this gun with me. And the reason is I'm responsible for every projectile that leaves this muzzle. What happens to this gun when it's in my control? Or if I lose control of it, there's a lot of liability placed on me. And the same would be placed on a teacher in a school. So that's why we make these teachers responsible for, their actions. I don't see why they need extra training. They just got to realize there's a ton of liability. And if they believe that they're trained and they have enough competence to carry in school, let them do it.
I think this is where me and Harrison differ, because he puts too much confidence in liberal teachers. Sorry.
Liberal teachers are not going to carry, minus like the libertarian ones who classical liberal.
Hey, those were the good ones. I missed those. I went to business school, so I mostly had relatively conservative teachers except for the core classes. I also went to a pretty conservative school too. So
yeah, I dropped out of college after 6 weeks. So I can't. I only had.
You might have saved yourself. Just mind-numbing arguments.
I'm trying to remember. I had like 4 instructors during that 6-week period, and I only remember 2 of them. I don't remember what the other 2 were like. Dave, I don't know. It really just depends. Maybe every couple of weeks. I might try to have some people like Big Johnson, Nolan on. If they're willing to come on. Music. See, the whole thing with progressive, liberal, conservative, I hate those terms. I was giving Crazy Scotsman crap on one of his chats that a lot of people would call him a classical liberal. Because a lot of people in his chats I know would be considered classical liberal. At the end of the day, I don't fall into conservative. I don't fall into liberal. Everybody has different views on different subjects, and I can make a very good argument that being pro-firearms and pro-Second Amendment is actually a very liberal stance, and being anti-Second Amendment is a very true conservative stance. I mean, being open-minded and pro-freedom is technically the definition of liberal. And I actually did sales of construction materials right after I dropped out. Then I went into real estate, which was fun for a little while. And then I started making holsters. So I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah. Crazy Scotsman. I actually wanted to make holsters right after I dropped out, but I didn't think that I always thought I was the person that would sit behind a desk and not do the work myself, which was a big mistake. I probably would have had a huge head start if I'd have started about 4 years earlier. Yeah, you guys unfortunately have a very bad time right now in Illinois, just because the whole thing, Chicago controls it all. And we're starting to have the same problem here in North Carolina. Wouldn't you agree, Michael?
Yeah. Everybody gave California hell for the longest time. And I'll be the first one to admit that I was one of them. I'm like, California, that's your problem. Deal with it. And, not even 5-10 years later, it's, it's now our problem. And I see that it makes it obviously very important to fight it no matter where it's at. They say it in just about everything. It starts in California, worked its way back across the country. So we all just need to be very careful. Chicago is a cesspool, always has been.
Yeah.
Probably always will be. Sorry, the land of Lincoln is not what that man would be rolling over in his grave. or maybe rolling over in his grave.
I don't want to start getting into Civil War history, but he was definitely the reason we're having a lot of these issues today can actually be traced back to Lincoln and states' rights. After the Civil War, states' rights were stripped completely, and
well, at the same time, when you say states' rights, the federal government should be fighting California on their firearms legislations. So, because they're violating the Second Amendment.
Agreed.
Flat out. So there's that. So I'm big on states' rights, but at the same time, we have a constitution, we have a hierarchy of government.
Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, and so on should not apply per se there. I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues. Dave, it's going pretty good. It's about to hit the slow season, unfortunately. Hopefully, I'll have some summer products coming out, which might boost sales a little bit for the summer. 1776 or bust, you could definitely make that argument. It got even worse. I wasn't a big fan of a lot of things Lincoln did during the Civil War, and I'm not a fan if the Civil War was even started. I think slavery would have died out within 5 to 10 years, and you wouldn't have lost 500,000 lives, and race relations would have been better. And I'm probably controversial as hell for saying that, but there was a lot of racial resentment created as a result of the Civil War. The War of Northern Aggression, exactly. Sorry, 1776. Yeah, this is going to be bad if I start getting into states' rights and the Civil War history. So we got to get off this subject. What should we talk about, guys? What do you want to talk about besides that?
I do know Uncle Dan said something about Glock tard, and I figured he was talking about me.
Michael's definitely a big Glock fan. If it's not a Glock,
I am a shameless Glock fanboy.
All right, so what do you think of the 19X?
I didn't understand the purpose of the 19X, but after shooting it, I do like it. Still not going to buy it because I don't want an FDE gun. I see no purpose in carrying an FDE gun. But if you do, no hard feelings. That's me, personal preference and all.
Yeah. I want to say something to 1776 or bust. The economics in slavery weren't there. There wasn't money to be made in slavery anymore because of the cost for the actual labor they were getting. It didn't really make sense. A good book to check out on that is Renegade History by Thaddeus Russell. Really good read and will teach you a lot of crazy things. Like, did you know the mob actually started, just random history fact, the mob actually started running gay clubs. And then when Prohibition happened, they had the groundwork for the underground clubs that became the speakeasies. Crazy Scotsman, I've got a J-frame holster that's in the works, and I'm going to NRA show, and I'm going to talk to Smith & Wesson about trying to get some CAD support, because the J-frame holster, I went through almost 20 revisions, and at 20 revisions, I have to sell a ton of holsters to make any profit. You're looking at 2 hours per revision minimum, closer to 3 usually. So start looking at the time on that. And revolvers, a J-frame, I'll probably make my money back on the J-frame, but there's no way I could do that on any other revolver. But if Smith will give me some CAD files, I can get it down to 2 to 3 revisions like any other product I make, and it'll be a lot better. Yeah, the 686 Plus is cool. Dave, actually trying to work on some OWB holsters, though. I'm trying to make them a taco, though, so I can make them affordable. If I were, with the tooling I have, basically, I think right now, Bravo Concealment, would you agree with this, Michael? They kind of own the pancake market. They don't make the best pancake holsters out there, but their price is so significantly better than everybody else because of the scale they're doing it. It's hard to compete. I'd have to sell a pancake holster to even get people to consider my product, even with better features. $75 max, and my cost is too high to make a profit at $75.
Yeah, I mean they're killing the price game. You know, aside from Renee and his social media marketing, I mean he does a phenomenal job.
He does, but Price.
But Price, I mean he's killing it.
Like I've handled your holsters. I haven't done them much, but your private concealment, they do a good job. But what annoys me is they spend a lot of money on their tooling, but they could just do some minor things to make them so much nicer. And it would increase their tooling costs a little bit, but it wouldn't increase their manufacturing time. So their prices wouldn't go up more than $1 or $2 per holster. And I think they could probably eat the costs and the design time and keep their prices the same and have a much nicer product. So that kind of annoys me. Music, you'd like a 34. They're supposed to be really nice.
Sorry, Big Johnson. It's a mechanical keyboard, so
Firearms 101, probably not going to do the Bursa. I just don't get enough requests for those. And I've messed around with a Ruger in the past and Taurus, and anything on the lower budget, anything that kind of sells for a price under $400 to $450, it's really hard to sell holsters for. Just the price range I'm at, and that's the price range I'll be in for the foreseeable future unless I bring some new machinery in. No leg rigs coming for your CZ Scorpion. Maybe an AR-15 leg rig. That might be happening, though.
You and that daggone AR-15 pistol.
Hey, you're going to be the model for it.
No, I don't think so.
What do you think about that brace?
No, that's not a brace. I mean,
it's a brace. Dude, it's the most effective brace on the market using it as a brace.
It's a nice brace, but it's we had this debate. I don't think it qualifies as a brace. Personally, I hate the NFA, but at the same time, I still have to play within the rules for now.
That is in the rules. It is.
Well, that's your opinion, but I'm just like, man.
And you helped me film it, but it's a 25 yards shooting an AR-15 pistol offhand.
No, I mean, you did do that, but that sucker, it's a positional stock. I don't know how it's a brace. Everybody should buy one because they're awesome.
But you guys,
I don't know how it's brace.
Sounds good. Sounds good shooting with Uncle Dan. CW Hunter. The CZP01, the problem with that is I really want an Omega, and I want it in black. Those are impossible to find right now. I'm probably on 20 different notification lists like Grab a Gun, Impact Guns, I think Bud's Gun Shop, a ton. Which comment, Scotsman? Yeah, I'm hearing some feedback in my headphones, and there's definitely a lag. Yes, yes, Big Johnson. We'll have to meet up at the NRA show if you're going to be there. I assume since you live in the Dallas area, you'll be there. Trying to talk Michael to go in with me.
We should talk NRA.
All right, let's go. Let's talk about the NRA. Talk about them. What do you think?
Yeah, sorry guys.
We'll email the Crazy Scotsman. Uncle Dan and I will email.
So obviously the NRA is catching a lot of flack. Rightfully so, I feel. But
rightfully so on some things, but at the same time, I don't think we can completely do away with them. I wish that was a reality, but it's one of these freaking evils we have to work with. And the reality is they have 5 million members who don't listen to Gun Owners of America. They don't listen to state organizations. They don't listen to any other pro 2A groups. But if they get a freaking card in the mail from the NRA that says, call your rep, a large percentage of those members do. And nobody else has that kind of power. Now, the problem is, for every card the NRA sends that says, please call and email your reps, they also send 20, please donate us $25 and we'll send you a free pen or knife or made in China.
No, they said, we'll give you this little duffel bag.
Yeah, a little $10 piece of crap that is not that good. But if you guys want awesome rifle bags and pistol bags, check out Lynx Defense.
I knew that.
Especially that gray.
You do like the gray.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, we make gun bags.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, I am meeting Big Johnson Guns and Gear at NRA show. It's going to be good to actually meet him in person and hang out. We're definitely going to check out the CZ booth. I hope he doesn't assault any of the people there, though. I'm a little worried about that. The problem with the NRA is mainly they're a money-driven machine, which isn't a problem. Like, a lot of people attack Wayne LaPierre for his salary. I really don't have a problem with that if he gets results, but he doesn't seem to be getting results. That's my issue. Hey, Rick, what's up? Rick is your sixth cover. That's Rick Michael. LZ USA, yes, the president does love the NRA because the NRA helped get him elected. Trump definitely had a good platform as far as how to win the election. And he was probably the strongest on that side. You know, you get into politics, he was the one who was going to make it past the primaries and also have a chance of beating Hillary. So they knew to back him from the beginning. And because of that, he feels indebted to them, and the NRA is getting themselves in trouble. Alaskan Ballistics, the G30. I actually tried I don't know if it was a G30 or a G30S, but they actually fit the Glock 19 holsters. I'm not sure which one it was, and there may be a difference there. But it did fit in the Glock 19 holster. But a specific one, probably, there's not the demand there yet. I have to own the actual gun, so I can test fit and do everything up to my standards. Gets a little expensive. Oh, Nolan, are you giving me crap, Nolan? You don't think I was a good
Is he talking about you modeling the gun bags?
Yeah, probably. I turn into a mannequin anytime I go to the range with Michael because
I knew I shouldn't have put him in the picture. I did cut his head out of most of them at least.
Lost you a sale already.
I knew it. Although, you know, the ankle kit sold better when we put your leg in there. So there's that, I guess. You just got to keep your face out of it. You know, apparently you have the legs for sales.
Hey, I'm just glad Cloud Defense. Rick, I'm actually going to talk to STI, and if your buddy X-Ring has any contacts at STI, I would love to talk with them about getting some CAD files. Because if I could get enough CAD files to do some overlays on 2011 style holsters, it could work. But the deal is, it takes me around 20 hours to make the tooling for the average holster. So it's not worth it, obviously, for one holster. But if I can get support from somebody like SVI or STI, I could definitely get something that would maybe get a couple of different holsters that would work for both. And if I could try to get a gun at cost, that would help a lot because really have to be worth it.
Does anybody know if the CZP07 has 10-round magazines? I'm guessing
they make 10s. They're standard with 15. The Alaskan Ballistics, same thing. The problem is I really need to own a gun to make it worth it. That way I can continue to make the holsters on, and maybe eventually if I find a Glock 29 or a Glock 30 or 30S for a good deal, I'll consider it. Is your six covered? The thing is, I only need exterior CAD files. I don't need the internals. And a lot of times what they can do is they can go in and they can program it so I only get the exterior. I actually had Ruger was going to give me that, but then I think that's when all their layoffs happened. And that caused some problems for me that I wasn't too happy because I was going to get a bunch of files from them, but I didn't. So I'm going to talk to them at our NRA show. Going to talk to Smith & Wesson. Both those are going to be primarily about revolvers. I'm going to talk to STI. And if SVI, I don't think SVI is going to have a booth. I've got everything mapped out. But if I could get a couple of exterior CAD files, do some overlays, I could figure out something that could probably fit most 2011 style holsters, or have one or two or three 2011 options that would fit all the holsters. What do you want to do in an ankle rig, Nolan? Big J, we're going to need somebody with a little more clout than either you or I or anybody in this chat has. I got a feeling to give them to us. We need to get Matt from Demo Ranch or somebody like that, I'm afraid.
Hey, I met him at SHOT Show.
Crazy Scotsman. It's going to be Smith & Wesson, Ruger. They're going to be the two for revolvers. And I'm trying to think what else. And STI. I'm going to stop by Steyr, see if I can get some info on their numbers. I'm going to stop by a bunch of different booths for smaller handgun manufacturers, get an idea if there is. Sorry if I look kind of weird. I'm looking at my phone. But see if I can get an idea on import numbers, that sort of thing, to see if there is demand to make holsters for those guns and if they'll help push some of my products through their marketing to show there is holster availability. Maybe I'll consider doing it for guns like the Steyr. Yeah, Crazy Scotsman, if you've got sales contacts, that's great, but I really need somebody in the engineering department who's going to work that. Like I said, Ruger was very responsive, but then I just didn't hear anything back from them. So I'm assuming those guys got laid off. I signed NDAs, did all that. Smith & Wesson, all I get is we don't do that. Thank you for contacting us. I'll do that right after the chat. So what does everybody want to see from NRA show when Big Johnson and I are there? And Michael, have you had a chance to check out the Smith & Wesson 380 Shield EZ?
Yes, I've seen it. Haven't actually put my hands on it, but I've seen it.
I'm going to say this. I've got my P365 right here, and I think this might be the most overrated gun of the year.
It's not a Glock.
I think this is going to be not the most underrated,
Now we're
but right
talking.
in the middle. This is going to be second most underrated. And the Dave, the Shield, the 43, and the 19. And right now, the SIG P365. Those are my best-selling holsters currently. Is your six covered? I'll need a gun, period. So I'll purchase a gun. I'm willing to purchase. I'm willing to go out and purchase an STI. Infinity's out of my league, but I need the actual gun for folding the holster. The way the manufacturing process works is it's you have the sheet of Kydex is flat. It gets hot. It forms onto a flat mold, and then it's cut out, and then it's folded around the gun to give it its shape. So I need a gun for actual folding. Hey, I would love to start. I carry my revolver. I would love to start making guns for those revolvers, but the design on those, because of the shape, takes way too many revisions. Unless I can get pre-existing CAD files that I can de-feature them and design my molds. Big Johnson, what did you think of the EZ when you held it? I think the EZ is going to end up being the most underrated gun of 2018. And sounds crazy, but there's no other gun. It's probably a better choice for a lot of people than a J-frame, especially people with arthritis, because a J-frame takes a lot of force to pull that trigger and to get an accurate shot. So the Smith & Wesson is a better trigger for most people, yet it's still easy enough to manipulate. Crazy Scotsman. Blue guns, the problem with blue guns is a lot of them have the trigger guard built up. So for revolvers, that's complete out because the trigger guard is such a thin design. I do use blue guns to fold my Glocks and SIGs and my Smith & Wesson M&P Shield, but I use actual guns for test fitting on all those. It makes a big difference. There are guys who can make a good holster with a blue gun, but with my method, it's not possible. Yeah, Nolan, that's exactly it. Like, I'd never carry a Smith & Wesson 380 Shield. in my current state. But let's say I got in a car accident, got some kind of horrible disability that took away a lot of my strength, or I was 75 years old with arthritis. It wouldn't be a bad gun for my grandma, for my 65-year-old aunt who's 4'9" and has bad arthritis in her hands. Music lover, you can get them without the thumb safety. And I really don't mind the grip safety design. I tried to grip that gun as high as I could. I mean, like you see, give you an idea. I was gripping it like that, where my hands really just between the beaver tail, a lot of space in there. That's how I was gripping the Smith & Wesson 380 EZ, and I still couldn't get it to not actuate the grip safety so I could fire. So it's got a pretty good design on the grip safety. Yeah, CW Hunter, everybody that sees it. Good night, Alaskan Ballistics. Hope you have a good night, man. Everybody that handles it so far has liked it. And I really want to get one and shoot it, but I'm not sure if it's worth it because probably won't make holsters for it. I just don't see the crowd that will carry those making holsters for it. Alaskan Ballistics, I can believe that you haven't had any. So far, my shops on the East Coast, and from what KS Gun Guys told me, they only or what was I saying? Yeah, they've only gotten 3 here on the East Coast. For what KS has told me, it's working east to west. But the P365, I can't decide whether I like this gun or not, even if it's reliable. It's just so small. I don't have my 43 here with me or a shield, but the grip distance from the front of the back strap to the back is smaller than it should be. Now, proportionally, this is a very good-looking gun. It's very attractive looking. And that's because everything's proportional. But ergonomically, there should be more meat either at the front of this, on the front strap or the back strap. From you shooting it, would you agree, Michael?
Yeah, it's a small gun. And the only thing I will say about it is it's small, but the Glock 43 actually has more bite as far as recoil and controlling recoil than the P365 did. And that's coming from a Glock fanboy.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I have noticed.
Controlling recoil on it was good or bad? What were you saying again? Repeat that.
The P365 was, to me, not quite as snappy as the 43 is.
Now imagine the P365 though with a little extra grip. So you get a little.
It took a good bit of getting used to, but that's from somebody who primarily only shoots Glocks.
Yeah, and Frank, I actually shot my LCP2, not the last time I was out with Michael, but the time before that. And it, surprisingly good for such a little gun in 380. But yeah, I wouldn't want to shoot it for 20 minutes. I shot 400, or it was 380 or 390 rounds through the old P365 and this one, and there'll be update videos coming on that. I was editing one before this. And it's not a fun gun to shoot for 400 rounds straight in about 2 hours. I was out at the range. I showed up at 11 and I left at 1:30. So I was there 2.5 hours and shot 400 rounds essentially. 390 rounds through that, plus maybe another 40 through my Glock. And it's not, the 365 is not a fun gun to shoot for that many rounds. Whereas a shield or a 43, I've seen people go through classes. I haven't probably shot more than 200 at a time with mine. Seems a lot more comfortable when shooting long term. Yeah, in CW Hunter, if you carry a full size or a compact size gun like that, I was actually having a discussion with somebody today on that. I don't think there's any reason to give up something like a 19, a P07, a P01 for this. Now, I'm wearing a polo shirt right now. I actually carried this today because this polo shirt I'm wearing, unfortunately, this prints just with the cut of the shirt. So this does work even with a 12-round mag. So 13 rounds in this thing. I've only got 12 in it, actually. I don't top it off, but it's pretty impressive for the concealment, but it's really a niche gun.
Yeah, Harrison doesn't carry one in the chamber.
I do carry one in the chamber. I don't.
I'm just kidding.
And when I'm like in my office right now or something else, it's a little bit different. What do you see me do every time we go to the range when you show up? I'm always clearing my gun so I can shoot it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the jumping jacks. Sorry.
The LC9S, personally, I'm not a big fan for myself. I don't like the trigger reset. It's basically full extension, but it does have a great trigger, and it can definitely be shot very accurately. And I think for a lot of beginners, the LC9 is not a bad choice because I've just seen a lot of beginners able to shoot that trigger very well. Nolan, you think I should ban Big Johnson? I'm thinking I'm going to give Nolan the wrench Big Johnson. All right, guys. Well, we've been doing this for about an hour, so I think it's probably time to cut it off. Probably don't have too much to talk about anymore. You got any closing thoughts, Michael?
No, I think we covered a good bit. I'm still upset that you cut out the part about you being a gun bunny in one of those videos, but can't cut it out of a live stream, so I'm going to go ahead and put it here.
That's with Chair and Tactical and gun bunnies.
Oh, man, we should have talked about that. That's kind of old, though. That was like that was January. That was SHOT Show month and Gun Bunny month.
I do want to ask you this. What do you think about all the companies boycotting the NRA? I know a couple of them reversed that now.
One thing we didn't talk about that I would like to get a couple of comments on, it's not NRA, but Daniel Defense and the statement they made. Obviously, I'm a Glock fanboy, but I can admit my allegiances very clearly. I also really like Daniel Defense. I was very disheartened by the statement they put out, and I understand a lot of people are shunning them.
And I'll say this: he ordered a lot of money in two very high-end Daniel Defense offerings.
It's like a week before he posted
5 days before, and he called me almost crying.
I was not crying. I said that was stupid, and he should have never done it. But a lot of people don't buy his apology, and that's perfectly okay. But at the end of the day, we all make mistakes, and just because he's a business owner, I think whether he realized the mistake because it was going to affect him financially or he realized realistically it was going to be a mistake, none of us will ever know.
I think the fact that realistically it was going to be a mistake. Marty Daniel's a busy man. He runs a company. What did we figure? They sold $50 million a year in rifles, probably at their gross sales.
Yeah, I think I pulled the ATF's how many they made, and it was what did I say? It was like 50,000 rifles.
50,000 and that
was 2016. The 2017 numbers aren't in yet.
Their rifles sell for what, $1,700 probably average on store price, and the markups are not that much. So distributor level, everything, you're looking at gross sales of a minimum of $50 million just in rifles.
Right.
They sell barrels OEM. They sell other parts OEM. They've got military contracts for uppers, not complete rifles, all sorts of things. So
that was like when we pulled the Arrow numbers. Their complete rifle sales were abysmal, but their lowers, man, it was astronomical.
And they sell a ton of stripped receivers, everything. But I think Marty Daniel, probably a busy guy, and he doesn't read the bills. He's got his guys he talks to at the NSSF and the NRA and other organizations, and they're all going, "Hey, Marty, sign this." Or not sign this, but we need your support on this. We need your support. This is a good thing for the gun industry. This is why. And they don't tell him the negatives. Yeah, Frank, that's my thought on it.
Yeah, I agree with Frank too. And I think somebody brought it to his attention who I don't know. I think he realized his mistake.
The younger guys in his marketing team.
Well, and he came back and he said, "Look, I screwed up." And if you can't at least appreciate the man coming and walking back, admitting you were wrong is one of the hardest things to do, especially in a public way like he did. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying I agree with it. I still don't like what he did. Should have never done it in the first place. But
I'll say this. if this was the CEO of Remington who did it, I may not buy the apology, or the CEO of Ruger, the CEO of Smith & Wesson. But the owner of Daniel Defense, who started his company, you know the whole story behind him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He used to own a garage door installer.
Yep.
I mean, started from the ground up. He made a batch. I think he contracted another manufacturer to make 100 of a part, and then that's how his business grew from.
Yep.
You don't get that large in the business unless you really love guns. And if you really love guns, you're probably going to love the Second Amendment. There are exceptions, but I think he's legit.
I do too. Okay, Big Johnson's apparently copyright a millennial perspective. And
I like it. I just want to show that I know you're against it, but I think people take millennials and they're like, they all think this way. They all act this way, and I hate it.
I told Harrison, I was like, don't you put millennial in this chat name? He did it anyway because it's his channel. He can do what he wants. But I just didn't want to be lumped in with those Tide Pod eating idiots. So, but I think we've proven that we're not going to eat any Tide Pods. So,
nah, I'm not even drinking bourbon tonight.
But if Harrison was going to get Tide Pod, it'd be like the ones with no scent or no flavor. That'd be the, what is it?
I'm not. I just bought ready detergent, so. Well, I'm glad you copyrighted that.
I think we had like 25 people in here at one point.
Yeah. So I appreciate everybody coming on and watching.
Especially on Thursday night.
Actual closing thoughts now.
Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys want to follow up with us, you can shoot us an email. We'd love to talk to you some more. Well, no matter what it's about. So,
all right, we're gonna close off. I'm gonna keep this broadcast between us still live, so we'll talk a little bit after this. But yeah, we'll save the sweet tart flavored pot ties for you, Big J. All right, guys. Rock River Arms. Yes, saw that Mace S. Not really sure. I've heard so many people say conflicting things what that's about. I'm not really a big fan of their products, though, so it doesn't really affect me either way.
Springfield still sucks for trying to weed themselves out of the anti-Second Amendment bill.
I don't really.
I just had to put that in, but that was closing thoughts. Springfield still sucks.
All right, see y'all.